Is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show, sponsored by Bet365. I am your host, Josh Harris. As you're coming in, make sure to smash that like button. Make sure to subscribe. It helps keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, and much more. So you guys know the drill there. Joining me, as always, partner in crime, fourth year together, full time. I can't believe it's our fourth season together already. It feels like
I don't know, man. I know. It's so weird, like, because I worked with some of these same people back at the old FanVice days. So I think this is like my 7th season doing YouTube videos. It's just, I had a full head of hair when we started. I had a lot less gray in the beard, but always excited to be here. Really like a huge 12-game slate here tonight, but there's some pretty interesting matchups for the big boys, for the the McDavids and the Matthews of the world. So not really that cut and dry on who to stack. And looking at our ownership real quick this morning, our first round of ownership, there's not a single winger on the slate on the DraftKings slate with 10% projected ownership or higher. So seems like things are going to be pretty spread out, and I like those kinds of slates.
Yeah, this should be an interesting one. I initially thought there was going to be certain teams with a lot higher ownership, and maybe it moves throughout the day. We have our guys working behind the scenes on that kind of stuff. I guess the secret's out of the bag. I'll say it. I was going to say it anyway. He probably was going to kill me anyway, but he said something in the NHL chat. Jake's wife went into labor this morning, so he's going to be expecting Papa today, hopefully. Hopefully. I mean, if that labor goes into tomorrow. Poor Mrs. Harry.
That'd be a real tough time for her.
Yeah. But, we have our data team working on top stacks and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure we'll get updates throughout the show. But congrats to Jake. Congrats to his wife. That is exciting. And if he's looking at me, he'll be joining me with the big old bags under the eyes.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if he'd be sitting like in the waiting room or whatever, watching us on the show while she's going to labor. I was thinking like that'd be a little bit too much. Like maybe he could just take the whole day off or something. But no, congrats to them. I'm sure he's going to have many sleepless nights ahead of him.
Yeah, Jake's a good guy. I would have went down to the lobby, but No, actually I wouldn't have, but I probably would have.
Yeah, I hope your wife isn't watching this.
She probably isn't, and her mom's upstairs too. So if they are watching this, I'm going to walk upstairs into a hornet's nest. But it's all right. I cook them meals. Okay. Anyway, let's get into the slate. It is a 12-game. Oh yeah, she is. She's in the chat. She is not happy. Yeah, there she is, calling me by my full name. I did not leave the room. Okay.
Man, there's no going back now. So you made your bed.
I can't even make my bed. My back hurts so bad right now. But anyway, before we get into this slate, let's talk a little bit about, I think the other night we got a message. I think it was last night's slate. Elway's Army shipping the $5 poke check special for $5,000. Give us a shout out on DraftKings. Congrats to you, man. You've been on a heater this season. Everyone's saying hello to Mrs. Harris in the chat. She's a lot friendlier than I am.
Yeah,
but
yeah. This is Dave's lineup. The interesting part is going the double defenseman. That's something that we haven't talked about a lot on the show this year. It's something that we do use once in a while, like the power play defenseman, and then maybe his partner or somebody else that plays the power play with him. Like Gostisbehere, Cedar in Detroit or something like that. Like it is something, especially on a shorter slate, that's very, very viable. So good roster construction for him. Congrats on your hit, Dave. Hopefully either Dave or somebody else can do the exact same thing again here tonight.
Yeah, it's always good to start the show talking about wins in our community, even if they aren't ours. You know what I mean? We say it all the time. We're here to help other people. Yeah, we like winning, but we also like when you win too. we should probably get into the slate. It is 12 games, and there are a lot of good spots tonight. Before we do, let's talk a little bit about Sleeper Fantasy. You can get up to $100 first deposit match. All you have to do is go to stokastic.com/promo-bonuses/sleeper-fantasy. We have a free square for you guys tonight since it is Thursday Night Football. Derrick Henry over half a rush yard. It's a free square. You get odds on the over and the under, so you can stack over and the under. You can win up to 100x the payouts, the highest payouts on the DFS market. You can also place in-game contests. They have a lot of stack categories. They have, double doubles for NBA, triple doubles for NBA. MLB just ended, but they had home runs, triple stolen bases, and that. Congrats to the Texas Rangers and our good pal Saul Goodman for having almost 10 grand in futures on them. They also have dynamic payouts. What are dynamic payouts? You ask. In short, each player projection now has a multiplier attached to it as opposed to a preset multiplier is based on the number of legs in a contest. So if the minimum deposit there is $20, but you can get up to $100 first deposit match. All you have to do is go to stokastic.com, look for Sleeper Fantasy. They have the offer there and sign up through that link. And it's a great time to do it with the Derrick Henry over half rushing yard tonight. Basically a free square. You get free money there. So check it out. Let's get into this slate here. First game of the night, Tampa Bay Lightning with a 3.6 total heading into Columbus. The Blue Jackets have a 3 total. Thank you, Cliffy, for putting that picture on. I think I forgot to put it where you asked me to. You still had it anyway. Judging by your face, that is the correct answer.
I mean, that's what we're here for. Pick each other up, right?
Yeah. Appreciate it. I had a little bit chaotic morning, and now I just made my afternoon a little bit crazier by – never mind. Tampa Bay. Surprisingly enough, in our first round of ownership, the two highest owned lines in this game on the slate are in this game. Columbus top line coming in with a projected ownership of 8% per our top stacks tool. Boone Jenner, Johnny Gaudreau, Jack Roslovic. I kind of get it because they're only 16,500. They're pretty cheap for a top line. The defensive numbers for Tampa Bay isn't great. Like Jonas Johansson has been better than expected. He's still not Andre Vasilevsky. And the other line in this game that is projected 8% is the Hagel, Sorelli, Tanner Jeannot line. They're 10,900. They're going to get, Columbus depth. So I kind of get that. 8% is a little high for like really high in a 12-game slate for a depth line. But I'm kind of interested in power play stacking the Lightning here. 3.6 road total is very high. It's just like I don't know if I'm going to prioritize this game. I understand it. There are 6.5 going on a 7. There's just in my single entry, there are a couple 7 over-unders on this slate that I prefer more. But I honestly think if you're 20 maxing, you should have some of both sides in this game.
Yeah, I agree. And just to kind of highlight what you're saying, I'll bring up the top stacks. Like we're not kidding about the ownership on Tampa Bay. There's Tampa Bay 3, Hagel, Sorelli, Jeannot, 0.6% top 2 percentage, 8% ownership. That is high for a third line, any third line on a 12-game slate. The fact that Tampa Bay has the highest road total, I think, is part of it. Another thing is I was sharing some scoring chance stats in our Discord earlier today. Brandon Hagel, his scoring chance contributions, which are like his own scoring chances plus assists he has on a teammate scoring chance, are amongst the league leaders for forwards, like inside the top 15, I think, top 15 forwards. Like we're talking like Draisaitl, Sidney Crosby range. And the interesting part about that is he rated very highly last year, but he played a lot of the season next to Nikita Kucherov and Brayden Point. So it was pretty easy to pass it off as, playing with Kucherov and Point is going to boost some of your underlying stats. But he's played almost no time with him this year. He spent most of the season on the second line with Stamkos. Now he's been down on the third line. He just seems like he's been turning into a really, really good player. And I think his ability to carry a line, with Sorelli, he's a top 6 center. He hasn't been off to a great start this season. And then Jeannot's usually a pretty good volume shooter. Like I kind of get it. But by the same token, I am way more inclined to play Tampa Bay 1 here. Like you mentioned, the Columbus depth not being very good defensively, and that's, they aren't. The top line's not either. Like if you look at Jack Roslovic and Johnny Gaudreau's numbers when they're on the ice together over the last couple of years since Gaudreau got to Columbus, they're just bad. I mean, this year alone, we're looking at 3.5 expected goals against per 60 minutes, which is terrible. And if you go back to last year, it's about the same. So this Columbus shutdown line, they're not shutting down anything. So I'm pretty interested in going to a Tampa 1 line that's under 20K. They've been playing very well with Alex Barré-Boulet there. The defensive numbers have improved, which is one of the notable things. Like defense doesn't really matter when you're picking your stack, but one thing it shows is that they're not spending a lot of time pinned in their own zone, so they can turn the puck over and get it going the other way. 3.4 expected goals for per 60 minutes with Barré-Boulet there, generating 73 shot attempts per 60. Like they're just really good. So for me, it's Tampa 1 here. Like if you want to make it a power play stack, take off Barré-Boulet, put on Stamkos or something like that. I think that's perfectly fine. Tampa's not drawing a ton of power play opportunities, but the Columbus penalty kill isn't very good. So I do get it, but it is Tampa Bay 1 that I like best here. I have no problem with going to the Columbus side. I just think they're coming in a little bit over-owned for what they can do. 8% ownership at that price. Like that's not something where I'm like, oh, you have to go out and play them. I do think there are other lines in play at that price. Like at the very end of the slate, the show, we'll talk about Vancouver. Like there's 2 lines there I think I'd rather play. So for me, I think it's Tampa 1 I like the most. Turn it into a power play stack if you want.
Yeah. I mean, power play stack is what I'd lean to if I was doing Tampa, but you can leave Barré-Boulet there. I mean, he's looked like he's belonged up there, which he hadn't in the past few years. Hopefully he sticks. That would help Tampa out a lot. Let's move on to the next game. There's a lot of big totals coming up in a row here. The Florida Panthers with a 3.4 total heading into Detroit. The Wings have a 3.2 total. Sam Bennett is week to week after coming back and getting hurt again. That sucks. Looks like Anton Lundell is going to be centering the second line of Verhaeghe and Tkachuk. What that does for that line instead of E2 Luosterainen, I think it makes them a tiny bit better offensively and a tiny bit worse defensively. I don't think it makes a massive difference. Lundell probably has the highest upside between the two. He just hasn't shown it recently. So from a micro perspective, will he show it tonight? If you play Florida 2, you're going to find out. But at the same time, this is Evan Rodriguez also was practicing this morning after missing practice yesterday with a minor thing. He's in. So this is interesting because there's just tons of options on the slate, and there's going to be tons of lines coming in between like 3 and 6%. Both Florida lines projected around 5%. I think this is another good night to go back to Detroit 1. This is a pretty good matchup. Like, I know the Barkov line has been pretty good, and I know the Tkachuk line has been good, but at the same time, Florida is very high event. They take a lot of penalties. This is another game. If this slate is a 150 max paradise, because I want both sides of this game as well, especially like on the Detroit side, it's probably just going to be the top line. Like you want to go to that second line a little bit, sure, fine. But to me, I think Florida 1's in play, Florida 2's in play, and Detroit 1 is definitely in play.
Yeah, I have no interest in the Detroit depth. Like that Comfort Cop line has been just terrible defensively this year. 3 expected goals against, 3 actual goals against. Their shot attempts for and against, they're at like 41% of the share. Like they're just getting ran over. Perron's still in the top power play unit, so if you want to put him in a Detroit power play stack, I think that's fine. I think it's interesting to see Detroit coming in with 2.7% ownership. Like we see the hot start that they've been off to, and they are shooting way too high. They're over 16% shooting as a line. Like elite lines in a season will be like between 11 and 12%. Pretty good lines will be like 10, 11%. So obviously they're way above that. A couple problems with that Detroit top line. One, Alex DeBrincat's only had one game this season with over 18 and a half minutes of ice time. Like, that's not, like, for a top line, that's really not a lot. The other problem is like Lucas Raymond's on the second power play unit, so you're not getting perfectly correlated. By the same token, under 3% at home. And here's the thing is they have a lower total than Florida does, but it's still 3.2. And a 3.2 total when you have basically your top three offensive players all on the same line would indicate to me that at least the bettors think that if Detroit gets to 3-4 goals, it's going to be the top line that's going to do a lot of the damage, right? So that's what's kind of leaning me to the Detroit side of things here and not so much Florida. It's not that I don't like this matchup for Florida. I think it's a tremendous matchup for the Florida Panthers. Like, let's not get it twisted. I think Detroit overcooked a little bit in October. I think they're going to come crashing back down to earth here a little bit. It is the second line for Florida I would probably lean to, just because I don't think it's a great power play spot for the Panthers. Like, it's fine. Like, they should draw a few power plays. Detroit's penalty kill has been good, but a lot of it's been the goaltending. I think there's going to be some regression there too. But it's that Florida's second line is going to get that Confer Perron line. It's just not good. I'm sorry. Like, it's just not a good line. And Tkachuk and Lundell have very, very good numbers going back to last year. 4.4 expected goals for, 3.8 actual goals for. Defensive numbers, well, like much better than league average. So it's not like they're trading chances. They're just, like Homer Simpson choking the other lines. So I think they're going to do that to Detroit tonight. So I like Florida 2 here in this one. Florida 1's perfectly fine. They're perfectly correlated. They've been playing well. I think they're certainly fine to use. It is Florida 2 I like best. I think Detroit 1, considering their ownership and the goal total that the team is carrying, I think Detroit 1 might be my favorite line in this game.
Yeah. And I agree with you on Florida 1. I think they're a fine play. Reinhardt's been playing out of his mind recently. Whether that regresses or not, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's nice to see him actually play well with Barkov for once, and he might actually stick there.
Well, and just play on the top line. Like, he had spent a lot of time down on the third line trying to, lengthen the roster. They're putting him with better players now, which is nice to see. I'm sure he's excited about that.
Yeah, also like Panarin and Mika Zibanejad, like, Reinhardt and Barkov never played well together until this season, so I guess it could happen.
Yeah.
Just please don't put Panarin and Zibanejad together. Let's move on to the next one. The Los Angeles Kings. I love this game. Los Angeles Kings with a 3.4 total heading into Ottawa. The Senators have a 3.5 total. How awesome was it that Evgeny Dadonov scored last night? Sens lose a draft pick because of that trade. He comes out and scores.
Yeah.
It's like the classic NHL right there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I really like this game. There is not a ton of ownership on this game. There is one line over 5% projected, and it's the Danault Kaliev Trevor Moore line. Like, that line's always going to get ownership because they're a third line. They're always super cheap, and they don't really play third line minutes, and they're a very good third line. But for me in this game, I really like Ottawa 1 here. I also like the Fiala, Pierre-Luc Dubois line, 14,500 on the road. Like, yeah, Ottawa's very good offensively, that top line, but they're also really bad defensively. LA hasn't been exactly elite defensively. Their goaltending has been at the bottom of the NHL. Again, if you're 150 maxing, I want a boatload of lines in this game on both sides. So who you liking the best out of this game? Because there is a lot to choose from.
Yeah, it is the Ottawa top line I like here. I'm really glad that you said them. For this reason is the Ottawa top line, they did well last year. Obviously, like, Stützle had over 90 points. Tkachuk racked up goals, shots like crazy. The problem is that they couldn't really finish like a top line should. Like I was saying earlier, you'll see elite top lines between like 11 and 12% season is, in a season. Really good ones between 10 and 11%. They were like between 8 and 9, which is, you might see like a good defensive second line be like that. That's not where you want your top line to be. So far this season, they're shooting 10% as a line. And what that means is that they're scoring 5 goals every 60 minutes of 5-on-5 time. That's basically a goal a game, just at 5-on-5. And again, that's shooting 10%. If they finish the season at 10%, it would be perfectly in range for their talent. It's nothing that would scream regression or anything like that. They're just generating so much offense, 4.1 expected goals per 60 minutes. They're just generating so much offense that they don't even need to shoot 12, 13, 14% to have a sky-high goal rate. Now, there's two confounding problems. One, Ottawa's literally missing half their blue line, right? Yeah. Artem Zub has been ruled out. Thomas Chabot and Eric Branstrom don't look like they're going to be back anytime soon. That not only does that hurt the team defensively, obviously, it limits the puck movers that they have in the lineup. Like Thomas Chabot is probably their best puck mover. Eric Branstrom is a good puck mover from the third pair. Like if you look at Ottawa's defensive ice time in the last game, the third pair were AHLers that they called up and they played like 8 minutes, right? It's because they can't rely on those guys like they could with Branstrom. So it's a wonder if they can keep generating offense the way they have with half the defense core missing, including probably 2 of their 4 best puck movers. So I think that is a question. By the same token, on our top stacks tool, 4% ownership, 12% top 2 stack leverage of almost 8%. Like that is really, really good for a top line. Like they're not perfectly correlated on the power play. I don't think they need to be now that they're actually scoring well enough at 5-on-5. So I really do like that Ottawa top line. If people want to dip down to the second line, like you do get Norris and Batherson both on the top power play unit. My problem with the second line is that there's no playmakers there. And it was nice. I saw a thread by David Johnson. He might not be familiar to a lot of people, but he was a big hockey analytics guy when it was first starting out in the late 2000s, early 2010s. I think he's with an NHL team now, or he was anyway. He was talking about this basically the same thing last night, that they put Stützle and Giroux on the same line, by far the team's 2 best playmakers. I don't think there's a playmaker there on the second line that can really create against what's been a pretty good Los Angeles team. So it's Ottawa 1 for me. On the other side, it's Los Angeles 2. I don't have any problem with any of the top 3 Los Angeles lines. I just want to be clear with that. I think that all 3 are firmly in play, even at their ownership rates. I don't really care. The reason I'm going with Los Angeles 2 is because they're going into that second line that I think is going to struggle defensively, especially with all the defensemen that they are missing. And that Kings second line, 3.8 goals per 60 minutes so far this year, generating over 3 expected goals per 60 minutes. You get 2 out of 3 guys on the top power play unit, and the top power play is getting more ice time, or a larger share of the ice time than they were last year. Last year was like a 55-45 split. This year it's closer to like 65-35. So it's LA2 for me that I like best on the Los Angeles side. But like I said, I think all 3 Kings lines are in play, but it is Ottawa 1 that's kind of catching my eye here. And especially last thing, these are the 2 teams drawing the most power plays in the league. Ottawa's at 4.75 power plays per game, I think, and I think the Kings are at like 4.6, 4.5. So there could be 9-10 power plays in this game, which is why I think, as much as I like LA3, I want to get as many guys on. If I'm playing Los Angeles, I want to make sure I have at least 2 guys on the top power play unit in this one.
Yeah, and Chabot is their best Ottawa puck mover on the blue line. But I doubt Ottawa 1's going to not be on the ice without one of Sanderson or Chychrun.
Right. That's kind of how it works out, is that they have them on different pairings now, so that one of Chychrun or Sanderson is basically always on the ice. So it should work out well enough. And then those 1 or 2 shifts where the AHL guys are on the ice, it's just going to be fire wagon hockey.
Yeah. I mean, and 10% is fine for them. Like Brady Tkachuk is just a wildly high volume shooter. So like him shooting 10% is actually that's really good for him.
Yeah.
But Stützle is shooting like well below his average so far this season.
Right? Yeah, he's at like 5.5% or something like that, or 6%. It's like half his career average. So even that's got to
still on pace for like 100 points. Like he's ridiculous. Oh man, I feel bad seeing that super chat because I forgot to mention him from the other night. 1999 super chat from CPS DFS. Thanks again for all the content, boys. First time taking down the top shelf the other night, and got to give thanks. Watching the show and reading Cliff's article every day has changed my game. Let's keep it rolling. Congrats to you, man. I tried staying awake for that one. I'm old and in pain, so I passed out. But the first time you're in contention for winning the 333, whether it's a 2-game slate, a 12-game slate. It's always gets the heart pumping there. So congrats to you. You've been grinding really hard this year. So I had a lot of fun in the Discord. Keep it going.
Yeah, big congrats. I feel bad that I took a super chat to remember, because like I'm with you. We probably should have remembered to do that. But yeah, really nice night from you. Thanks for the kind words. Hopefully you can get a couple more nights just like that over the rest of the season.
Yeah. Don't we all?
It's true.
Let's go from a 7 total to a 5.5, shall we? Carolina Hurricanes with a 2.7 total heading into Madison Square Garden. The Rangers have a 2.8 total. These games are like Carolina going into Madison Square Garden is always a funky game. For some reason, Carolina has Netchus down the fourth line. Now, like one of Svechnikov, Teravainen, and Netchus are going to rotate there. I was expecting Teravainen just to hang out there for a while because he doesn't play too much, but he's been playing much better this season than he did last season. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. But like Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis being back together it tickles the fancy. They're coming in with no ownership at all. The problem is they're going into the Rangers top line. The Rangers have been very good defensively this season. They're going to get the Fox pairing. Igor's in net. It's a 5.5 total on a 12-game slate where there's multiple 7 totals. You know what I mean? So like this game as a whole kind of falls into the I'm not going to jam them, but if I happen to get them in my fantasy crunches organically, I'll leave them. You know what I mean? If anything, I think my favorite line in this game would be the Rangers top line because they're going to get that Aho line. They're going to avoid the Kotkaniemi line. Now, Kotkaniemi has not been very good defensively this year, so if you want to go to the Heedle line, that's fine. But like, this game screams MME to me.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly what our top stack says. 0.1% ownership on all Carolina lines. Like no ownership there. The thing is like there is a case for playing Carolina 1 just because like absolutely nobody will be playing them. But with the ownership so spread out today, it's like, why not go play a line like Detroit 1 that's only going to be like 2 or 3% or something like that? You know what I mean? A Detroit line that's at home to Florida rather than on the road against Shesterkin, you know? Like, that's just kind of the problem I'm running into is like, if this were a slate where, you know, Colorado and Edmonton were in just complete smash spots and they're coming in 15% owned or something like that, it'd be like, yeah, maybe I might take that chance. But if I can get a bunch of really good top lines, like we'll get to Edmonton later. Edmonton might come in at like 5%. Like I'd just rather do that. Like that's just kind of where I'm at. So nothing from the Carolina side for me. I will mention on FanDuel, Svechnikov is still not priced up. He's at $3,600 again. So I think that line is like 15,000 on FanDuel, which is just absolutely insane. So I think there's definitely a case to be made for playing them there where they're so cheap, not on DraftKings. On the Rangers side, the top line, they're not scoring is the problem. So they're relying on the power play to really get the job done. And Carolina is typically one of the best penalty kill teams in the league. They are again this year. The problem is their goaltending has really let them down, not only on the penalty kill, but basically at every single strength that exists. As long as their goaltending, you know, doesn't play like they have skate guards on, it seems hard to imagine that the Rangers are going to get there at 5-on-5. So I think I kind of agree with the 5.5 total here. Like I don't mind taking one-off players. Like if you want to bargain dive and go one-off Lafreniere, or, you know, just go, you know, throw in a one-off Zibanejad in case, you know, you were saying the other day, he does put up points in bunches, and that's been the case for his last couple of games. So something like that, I have no problem with. I just don't think there's anything here that I have any interest in full stacking.
Yeah. Like if you don't watch a ton of Rangers games, one thing I've noticed with Panarin is he's been going to the net a lot more this season. So I don't mind a one-off Panarin. Like he's been, maybe he wasn't healthy last year. We'll never know. But like,
I honestly think it's just the way they're being coached. They're just being coached to play a completely different style of hockey, and you're seeing the results. It's working pretty well.
Yeah. Better than John Hines. Sign up using the link in the description box below to get access to the best NHL data and tools in the industry. You get player and ownership projections, the top stacks tools, the line combinations that we bring up on the show all the time, and you get the most important thing, you get access to our Discord. Lots of sharp minds in there. We're always willing to help. You can even get recipes from Haas, who, like, I don't know, he sometimes drops cooking videos in there. Bit ridiculous, but we love him. But yeah, make sure to click that link in the description below. You can get weekly or monthly. You get access to everything we have free. Cliffy's article almost every day. The show 5 on days where there's 5 games or more. That's always going to be free. Then the premium stuff, players and ownership projections, top stacks tools, line combos, and Discord. Weekly is $19.99, and then you can also do monthly. You can also add on Fantasy Cruncher and go from there. So what are you waiting for?
Like Gwen Stefani.
Yeah.
What you waiting? No? Okay.
I know, but like I'm sure the average age in this chat is a lot younger than we are, and they probably don't even remember that Gwen Stefani was in No Doubt.
Well, yeah, she's just the person on, what is it, The Voice or one of those shows? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And Jake probably doesn't even know what No Doubt is, but he's busy in the room right now. He's not downstairs in the lobby watching the show. Let's get to another 5.5 total that I wish wasn't on the slate. New York Islanders with a 2.9 total. Heading into Washington, the Capitals have a 2.6 total. Your assumption about Nicholas Backstrom was correct. He has stepped away from the team indefinitely because of the hip problems. And if you watch the Capitals game, any Capitals game, he couldn't move. So I think he's doing the team a favor. Granted, their center depth doesn't get better without him. Like, whoever's replacing him.
I mean, I think Connor McMichael's a better option at this point. It's just kind of the way it is.
Yeah. I think, okay. Yeah. I want to not play this game, but at the same time, right? Dylan Strome and Alex Ovechkin have pretty good numbers together, and Tom Wilson up there, they've been pretty good. They're at home. Now, the Islanders have been taking a bit more penalties than they have been historically the past few years. Also, their penalty kill is middle of the pack, which is very unlike them. I think, like, I'm not going to run out and be like, man, I'm going to lock in 2.6 Washington Capitals top line at home on a 12-game slate and spot lineup, but I think there is merit to going to that top line here tonight. And we saw Horvat kind of break out a little bit the other day. That was at home, but I do think the Islanders top line is also in play.
Yeah, it is the Washington side I want to start with. You mentioned the numbers for Strome and Ovechkin. They had pretty good. They generated quite a bit last year. They just kind of had the problem that Ottawa's top line did, where they weren't scoring as much based off the number of shots and expected goals that they were generating. But it's not been the case for Washington's top line so far this year. 75 minutes with Ovechkin and Strome on the ice, 3.1 expected goals, 3.9 actual goals per 60 minutes. That's really good. And they're doing that while shooting under 10%. Like, it's perfectly reasonable. Like, they're very much in line with the amount of offense that they've been generating. What I will note is the last couple of games have been against Minnesota and San Jose. So maybe, that skews things a little bit.
I'm going to come back and win against San Jose, too. Yeah. They're losing late in the third period.
That's a good point. But the other thing is the ice time, right? Dylan Strome, I think he's been over 21 minutes for 4 straight games now. Where, like, a few years ago, it seemed impossible he was going to be anything more than like a 14, 15-minute low-end second liner. He's basically just a full-on top-line center now. I kind of like the Washington second line a little bit better, though. That's the issue here is Washington uses the Kuznetsov line in a shutdown role, and that means going up against Washington's top line or New York Islanders top line here tonight. The New York Islanders top line is giving up almost 39 shots against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. That's horrific. Like, there's no other way around it. Scott Mayfield looks like he's probably going to be back for the Islanders tonight, I think. Maybe that helps their defense out a little bit. But that's a terrible defensive number. In fact, the line has been playing so bad. Bo Horvat got moved down the lineup in the last game, if I'm not mistaken. Oliver Wahlstrom took his spot, or the game before that.
It was Barzal in 2 straight games moving down.
Okay, Barzal, sorry. Yeah, so this isn't a line that's playing well. And Kuznetsov, I think his back-to-back games with over 25 minutes of ice time, and again, Minnesota and San Jose. So I'm kind of digging the Washington second line here. I think Kuznetsov's even fine to use just as a one-off because he's like 4,400 or 4,100 on DraftKings, about just a little bit more expensive on FanDuel. And if you're going to play 25 minutes, including top power play time at that price range, I think he's perfectly fine as a one-off. I think TJ Oshie might be kind of cooked, to be honest. So maybe you don't have to play him, but he's on the power play as well. So a 2-man of Kuznetsov and Oshie is fine. Kuznetsov and Sonny Milano, who's going to be on that line, I think that's fine. I think it's, if you want to just throw Ovechkin on there because he's going to be on the power play with him, do like a Kuznetsov, Oshie, Ovechkin stack. I think that's perfectly fine as well. I think it's Washington 2 I like best here. I'm not going to be playing anything from the Islanders side in this one. It's probably the second line I like best. Engvall, Palmieri, and Nelson. They've really been generating a lot, and they've been playing extremely well. I'd probably be more inclined to just 2-man stack Nelson and Palmieri, but I think it's Washington 2 I like in this game.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I do like the top lines in this game, though. Horvat has been playing on the penalty kill as well. He's been shooting the puck more, which had been an issue earlier this season. But yeah, this isn't a game that I'm super high on.
The thing is, the Islanders' top line is going to
break our favorite.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just one real quick. Like Barzal's at almost 4 shots per game. If you look at what he did last year, he didn't have any goals in October. And then I think over his next 25 games, he had like 8 goals and 24 points or something like that. So like this line is going to come alive. It's just I want to keep picking on them until they do. Like it's one of those, I'm going to keep picking against them until they prove me wrong. Like that's just kind of where I'm at.
That's more than fair. Let's talk about our favorite bottom 6 in the NHL. The Toronto Maple Leafs with a 3 total heading into Boston. The Bruins have a 2.9 total. Boston going with the top line of Courtois. I probably messed that up. Pavel Zacha and David Pastrnak. They're keeping him in the NHL, which is probably a good thing. I mean, he's 19. He's not going back down. Second line of Marchand, DeBrusque, Coyle. Third line of JVR, Morgan Geekie, and Trent Frederick. I don't have a ton of interest in this game outside of the Boston top line. Like the Toronto bottom 6 is garbage, but like I really don't want to on a 12-game slate stack Trent Frederick, Morgan Geekie, and James Van Riemsdyk. Like I guess you can one off one of those guys. If you like the Boston top line is fine for me. If I was playing probably 20 lineups, they'd be in my mix. One lineup, it's going to be tough for me to get there at 19-4. On the Toronto side, like I don't know, man. Like they have a 3 road total, it's fine. But if anything, it'd be Toronto 2. But Boston 1's my favorite in this game.
It's Toronto 2 that I'm looking at here.
Yeah.
Boston's missing half their blue line. Charlie McAvoy suspended. Matt Grzelcyk is on the IR, and they announced today that Derek Forbord's not going to be playing tonight. Kevin Shattenkirk is now the number 2 defenseman in Boston.
Got deuces, baby. Rangers legend.
I like Shattenkirk as a player. He's not a number 2 defenseman at this point of his career. So I imagine Hampus Lindholm is going to get a ton of minutes up against the Austin Matthews line. And the Austin Matthews line, they got to figure something out, man. Since Yarncroc got there, 52 shot attempts per 60 minutes. That would be bad for some third lines in the league. And this is
do you know who they should put up there? Pierre Engvall.
That's a tough one. Oh God. So as long as Lindholm goes out against the Matthews matchup, there's not really a lot left to go up against Tavares and Nylander. And Tavares and Nylander have been really, really good so far this season, even with Tyler Bertuzzi there. 3.2 expected goals for, 67 shot attempts per 60 minutes. I did see Tyler Bertuzzi got kind of benched last game. I think he had like 1 shift in the final 10 or 12 minutes or something like that. So I don't know if you necessarily have to play him. I wonder if he's viewing this as like a revenge game though. Like he was in Boston last year, like for that stretch run or something like that, and they couldn't sign him. But it's, with that line playing so well, and Nylander's just been absolutely supernova to start this season, basically a continuation of the end of last season. And Tavares is up near 4 shots per game. I think I like Toronto too in this one, and there's no ownership on them. I was looking at top stacks earlier; it's like 2 to 3%. They're going to avoid Lindholm. I really don't care what forward line they match up against at that point. So, the Toronto 2 for me in this game, I don't think there's anything I want to play on the Boston side. I say that Ilya Samsonov is starting. He's had a pretty tough start to the season. I think a David Pasternak one-off makes all the sense in the world on this slate where there's a lot of mid-price lines you can play. Double center top line is not going to be that popular either. So I think Boston 1's fine to use for those reasons. But I think it's Toronto 2 I actually kind of like in this game the best.
Man, on Halloween, the Leafs look pathetic against the Kings. But
I mean, the Kings are away again. The Leafs are not.
Yeah. The Kings get a goaltender at the deadline. Look at it.
I mean, maybe they'll get Joseph Woll.
That'd be hilarious. New Jersey Devils with a 3.4 total heading into Minnesota. The Fighting Boldies have a 3.3 total. Matt Boldy is back. He's back. Devils take 1 injury, and now Michael McLeod, second line center. Their center depth is a bit iffy. Man, per our top stacks, the highest probability of a top 2 stack tonight is the Devils top line at almost 22%. They're coming in with projected ownership around 6%. They're going to see a lot of that Joel Eriksson Ek line and a lot of that Boldy and a lot of that Marcus Johansson. And man, for 6,600 cheaper, I'd rather just play Joel Eriksson Ek, Matthew Boldy, and Marcus Johansson than that Devils top line. I think the Devils top line is fine, right? I'm not going to make this isn't Joel Eriksson Ek, Marcus Foligno, and Jordan Greenway of 3 years ago. That line is still very good defensively, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, on a 12-game slate, I'm going to take the most expensive line going into one of the best defensive centers in the NHL and be profitable. Maybe it works tonight, 23,400, because the Wild aren't very good defensively. Their goalies haven't been great. Their penalty kill hasn't been great. So yeah, from that perspective, sure, you can play Devils 1. They're fully correlated, and they're going to get a bunch of power play opportunities. But at a 5-on-5 matchup, I think this favors the Eriksson Ek line. They're coming in with 4% ownership at 16,800. I think I like them the best. And then without Nico Hischier, I think you could go to the Minnesota top line here as well. Their center depth just is not very good. So I like the Minnesota side more here.
Yeah, I do like the Minnesota side more. I agree with you. Here's the problem with New Jersey. I'm with you. I have no problem playing them here tonight, especially with Minnesota kind of looking really bad defensively to start the season. Let's face facts.
They need Spurgeon.
Yeah, they do. One, Minnesota doesn't take a ton of penalties, and that's where New Jersey has really, really done a lot of damage this year. Jesper Bratt, I think 9 of his points or something like that have come on the power play so far this season. It has been the power play that's carried New Jersey's offense quite a bit. Only 3.1 times shorthanded for Minnesota per game. That's about a half power play game per game less than league average. Now, the penalty kill has struggled, so New Jersey can probably go 2 for 2 or something like that here tonight pretty easily. But they're more expensive than the Edmonton top line, and Edmonton's at home to a back-to-back Dallas team. That's kind of where I'm running into a problem is do I want to play rested Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl at home against the New Jersey line, missing Nico Hischier, wondering what that could do to the rest of the lineup. Obviously, they're probably going to have to play a ton of minutes. That's a big part of it. But I do like both Minnesota lines here. I'll bring up top stacks again just to kind of show everybody. We do have the Minnesota top line 12% on DraftKings top 2 stack, only 5% ownership. A little bit over-owned on the second line, but really nothing to write home about. I do like that second line because Jack Hughes and Timo Meier, there is a reason Meier was not playing on his line up until Hischier got hurt, and that's because they started the season together and were absolutely terrible together. So far this season, 2.9 expected goals against for the top line, getting outchanced. Any New Jersey top six line getting outchanced with the way that they're built is bad. So I do like Eriksson, Boldy, and Johansson. Minnesota is drawing a lot of power plays. That's where I'm kind of running into the problem with stacking Minnesota too. It's like, if they get 4 or 5 power plays here tonight, do I want to make a Minnesota stack that doesn't have Kirill Kaprizov on it? Like, that's really what it boils down to. So, like, if you want to leave Johansson off, make it a more expensive stack, add Kaprizov to Eriksson and Boldy, I think that's fine. I think both Minnesota lines are firmly in play. The way I'm building, I think I might lean more towards Minnesota too. But I really don't, considering the ownership and their price, I really don't have a huge preference over either of the Minnesota lines. I think I'll just say I'd rather play them than New Jersey tonight.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good point about the Devils taking penalties. And one of their best penalty killers is Nico Hischier, and he's out. So, yeah, you want to – I guess you can make it a power play stack, leave off Johansson, adding Kirill, but, yeah. Devils, like, I think they're a good play tonight. It's just 23,400 when you can get Edmonton 1 for 22.6. Let's talk about that game. Dallas Stars with a 3.1 total. Heading into Edmonton, the Oilers have a 3.5 total. For $800 cheaper in a home matchup against back-to-back Dallas, so it's probably going to be Scott Wedgwood in net. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Warren Fogle, 22,600. Now, you were dropping some knowledge in the chat, in the Discord, in the premium Discord, which you can get into if you click the link in the description below. I don't know what you're waiting for. But, yeah, Warren Fogle's, what was it? Assist or what was it? You can
Warren chance contributions.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, it's just what I was talking about a little bit earlier. It's just assisting on a teammate scoring chance plus the ones he gets individually. Another guy that's top 15 in the league, or I think he's 16 in the league so far to start the season. Now, it's one of those things that get double counted. So, like, if Leon Draisaitl has a scoring chance assist on a Warren Fogle scoring chance, then that event counts twice. So you'll see Draisaitl and McDavid at the top of the leaderboards for that reason. But here's the interesting thing about Fogle is, like, he's a guy that usually has a really high individual expected goals rate. And what that usually indicates is that he's someone that takes a lot of shots from in and around the net. His problem is that he's typically not been a very good finisher. He is finishing a little bit better this season, basically better than he ever has. And maybe it's just a short spurt. But there are guys, like Chris Kreider is a perfect example of that. There are guys that figure out how to score more efficiently around the net. Brady Tkachuk's kind of turning into that, rather than just whacking rebounds into the pad of the goaltenders, right? There is a way to finish around the net rather than just doing that. Whether he's learning or not, we'll need a much bigger sample to find out. But he's only 3,800, and it's not a terrible matchup against Dallas. Like you said, back to back. The Dallas top line really hasn't been that great defensively so far this season. 2.8 expected goals against per 60 minutes. That's a little bit worse than league average, actually. Fogle and Draisaitl have been really, really good together scoring-wise, going back to last year in a sample way over 300 minutes, 3.6 actual goals per 60 minutes. I kind of like Edmonton 1 here. I do like Dallas 1 as well, though. I get not wanting to play them. We bring it up every show that they're on. They just don't get a lot of ice time, right? I think Pavelski got like 15 and a half minutes last night. Jason Robertson was at like 17 and a half minutes. They're not going to play a lot. The issue here is that Edmonton is one of the most penalized teams in the NHL so far this season, giving up 4.1 power plays per game, the third most in the league. It's the most of any team on the slate outside of the Los Angeles-Ottawa game. Let's put it that way. So, that's power play. Sorry. It's Anaheim and Montreal taking more penalties. But anyways, it could lead to like 4, 5, 6 power plays for Dallas. And they are still a very, very good power play. So I do like Dallas 1 as well. I think I'd be more inclined to play them if I was playing 20 max, or if I had 50 lineups or 100 lineups or something like that here tonight. Single entry, I think I'd rather just go play at 5 or 6% Edmonton top line, but I do like Edmonton 1 here.
Yeah, and I don't mind dipping to Dallas like 2 or 3, because once you get past the McDavid line, it does not get better defensively. So, yeah. But another reason, if you think, oh, Dallas 1's a tough matchup defensively for Edmonton 1, their minutes concern is a reason to play Edmonton, right? So they're going to go out against every line. Like Dallas 1's going to play 16, 17 minutes. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are going to play 23, 24 minutes. They're going to see
if McDavid plays 17 minutes, it's because they're up 7-1.
Yeah. And even then, he'll probably still play 20. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I do really like Edmonton 1 here tonight. We have an offer for you guys for the NBA lineup generator. You can get 50% off your first week, then $8.95 after that. Get winning lineups fast. So what does that get you? It's a perfect tool for building winning lineups for any DFS contest. You'll be able to choose between balanced builds, highly projected builds, or contrarian ones. It is really, really easy for NFL. I try to figure out what the chalk is going to be on Sundays for NFL. So I'll go in, I'll click, chalky build. That's actually a thing. You can click chalky build, and then you can run back. Like if you want to do like a quarterback, wide receiver, and run back a player from the other team, you can do that. I use it as a tool to see what the chalk is, and I'm sure that works for NBA as well. So you can also swap your players in that lineup. You can do it by salary, projection, ownership. It's now live. You can swap out a player and choose another player. You can export up to 20 lineups at a time, and you can do it for 50% off, which is under $5 for your first week. But if you want to, the lineup generator is offered in all other DFS packages, but you can get the lineup generator package exclusively for under $5 for your first week. So click that link in the description below. If you just want to give that a test run, you can do it. If you're an NBA subscriber already, you probably have it. But if you want to give the generator a test run for a week, you can do it for under $5 in the first week. Let's get to the main event of the evening. The Montreal Canadiens with a 3.1 total heading into Arizona. The Coyotes have a 3.3 total. Coyotes, did they win last night? No, they did not. They lost 4-3, I believe, to the Ducks in overtime on a Troy Terry hat trick. Swapped off Troy Terry because they changed the lines. You know what they say in NHL DFS? Ignorance is bliss. Should have just ignored the line changes, and I would have made a lot more money.
I mean, that's just kind of the way it goes, right?
That is the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. But yeah, I don't mind going back to Arizona 1 here. It's not like, I don't care. They're back to back. They're at home, and they're going up against a defensive non-juggernaut, I guess you could say. Like Montreal is poopers defensively. So going back to Arizona 1 makes a lot of sense. Montreal takes a boatload of penalties. So Arizona 1 makes a lot of sense. They are coming in pretty highly owned, comparable to the slate, over 7% projected ownership. They're a very good play. Now, Lawson Krause did the work yesterday, but again, this top line, if Montreal is going to give them 5 chances on the power play, they're going to come through. On the flip side, I do also like the Montreal top line, specifically just Suzuki and Caulfield. The thing I will note about Raphael Harvey-Pinard, you can put him on. I worry that if they get behind, he's not going to be on that line towards the second half of the game. But I think if Matheson does play, I think you can do like a Suzuki, Caulfield, Matheson.
Yeah, I do like Arizona 1 here again tonight. Arizona 1's expected goals numbers aren't very good. Only 2.5 so far this season. Only 2.4 actual goals scored. They only that line only has 2 goals at 5-on-5 on 47 shots though. So they're shooting 4.3% or whatever, 4.2%. Like the way Arizona's top line runs their offense, you won't see them taking shots from the slot. Like they actually kind of run it like Montreal does. Is they look for a lot of seam passes, and if those are getting defended, like they're gonna have games where they only put up a couple shots as a line, and then that's it. Like that's just kind of the way that offense works. The nights that it does work, that's when they fill the net. And as you mentioned, Montreal is a team that does take a lot of penalties, the second most in the league so far this season, 4.9 per game. The league average is around 3.5, so almost 1.5 penalties more power plays, more per game given to the opponent. That's a lot. And Arizona is drawing the third most power plays of any team in the league, 4.2 per game so far this season. So Arizona could easily see 4 or 5 power plays here. The power play has been good. I do like Arizona 1. It is one of those lines that's coming in single digits. As long as it stays single digits, it's a line that I will play. So, if you want to take off Barrett Hayden, put on Logan Cooley or something like that, I think that's perfectly fine. But it is Arizona 1 that I like here. For me, it's just that Arizona 2 is coming in over own. 4% for that line. I actually don't hate it just because it's one of the few times where they actually could get a lot of power play time because they are all perfectly correlated on the second power play unit. And if Montreal does take 5 or 6 penalties or whatever here tonight, then they could see 3 or 4 minutes of power play time even as the second unit. So I don't mind Arizona 2, but it is Arizona 1 I like more. On the Montreal side, like I agree with you with Harvey Pinard that he could get moved down. I think it might be a case where it might not be because that line's playing poorly. It's because the Montreal second line is just getting absolutely ran over. Like Slafkovsky, Newhook, and Josh Anderson have terrible defensive numbers. Like Josh Anderson at this point of his career, that's just what he does. Like he is a pretty good forechecker, pretty good at attacking the net, but he sucks defensively and he drags. And Newhook, Slafkovsky they're a bad defensive line to begin with. So it just makes things even worse. And they might have to make a change for those reasons. So I do like Montreal 1 here as well. They ran over the Vegas top line the other night. I don't know if anybody stayed up to watch that game. They beat the piss out of Eichel and Marchessault. Like that's the only way to put it. They can do the same thing to Arizona. I think I would rather have Arizona, though, just because it is a much better special team matchup.
I'm not sure how hardcore NHL DFS fans are, so I would assume, besides me and you watching that game, I don't think most people are going to be like, yeah, it's midnight. Let's watch some Habs.
That's a good point. Good point. You raise a good point.
Let's move on to the next one. The Nashville Predators with a 2.9 total heading into Seattle. The Kraken have a 3 total. The most expensive Seattle line in this game is their third line at 12,500. Now, there isn't like a wildly expensive, like, I guess if you're doing New Jersey 1 or Edmonton power play or something like that, yeah, you might need some stuff there. But like the Bjorkstrand, Beniers, Ty Cartier line coming in over leveraged, the McCann, Tolvin, and Gord line coming in over leveraged, the Schwartz, Eberle, Wenberg line coming over leveraged. Now, again, in a nutshell, I don't mind Seattle here tonight. And I don't think you need a full stack, though. Like a one-off Cartier is fine. A 2-man of Beniers, Bjorkstrand, or Beniers, Cartier, Bjorkstrand, I think are fine. Again, they're coming in over own, but there's cheap enough where they let you power play stack a team that you want. Tolvin and McCann is fine. On the flip side, on Nashville, like, I don't have a ton of interest. If anything, it would be that top line. Just like this game feels like it's just going to be a sludge pace.
Yeah, it does. I'm just going to say I don't have any interest in stacking. In the interest of saving some time here, like there's just nothing here I like. Seattle really doesn't take any penalties. They're one of the least penalized teams in the league. The Nashville penalty kill has been bad, but the Seattle power play, like they split their guys across like every single line going down to the fourth line. And their quote top power play unit with Beniers is actually their worst one. So and they split the power play time. I honestly don't have any interest in stacking either side of this game, especially like I'll bring up top stacks real quick. 1.7%, 1.3%, 0.7% top two stack percentage, 3.5%, and then 6 to 7% ownership. Like I don't have interest at that level. I just don't like. If anything, I guess I'm with you. I'd probably play the Beniers line, but I just don't have interest in stacking this game.
Yeah, it's one of my least favorite games.
I mean, I'm not going to waste everybody's time talking about guys I don't want to play.
Like even if you wanted to stack Seattle, they have 3 stackable lines. So it's just like you have to pick the right one anyway, which never happens because Seattle's an enigma and we hate them all.
They are a good spot to go grab like a cheap one-off. Like if you want to play at 3,800 Oliver Bjorkstrand or something as a one-off, save some money and play a 3-2-1 lineup. Like, yeah, okay, perfect. I'm not 3-man stacking anything.
Yeah, I think Bjorkstrand's a good one-off. Cartier is a good one-off. He's been shooting. I prefer Bjorkstrand just because he's on the power play. Like the Seattle power play units drive me up a wall. I don't even want to talk about this game anymore. Let's move on to the next one. The Winnipeg Jets with a 2.8 total heading into Las Vegas. The Knights have a 3.2 total. Funny note for this game, I had a good chuckle. Gabriel Velarde not anywhere close to returning, but he's on the road trip. Didn't want to miss the Vegas trip. He's with the team. Don't blame him there. If the flow chart was still a thing, which it is, it's still calibrating now. It's in the shop. 1.9% Winnipeg won here. I think they're a pretty sneaky GPP play. The thing is, well, I do kind of like them there. There are lines in that price range I obviously like more, but for 18.7 under 2% projected, like I'm gonna give it a swirl. And I don't know if I'm going to get there in one lineup, but if I was making 3 to 5, I'd probably at least have one Winnipeg one here. On the flip side, Eichel, Marchessault, Barbashev at 5-on-5, they just haven't been it. You know what I mean? Like, I guess you could power play stack here, but like, I don't have a ton of interest in Vegas tonight.
I certainly don't have interest in the Mark Stone line. I've been writing about them a fair bit. Like that line just sucks. I don't know. There's no other way to put it. They've been, since Mark Stone came back in the playoffs, like they were bad defensively in the playoffs. We talked about this in the last show. They've been bad defensively to start this season. That Vegas Mark Stone line, 40 shot attempts for per 60 minutes, 76 against. Like those are numbers you see on like San Jose 3. You know what I mean? Like not a Mark Stone line on a defending cup champion team. Like I have no idea what's going on. Somebody's got, like, they have to have multiple players hurt on that line playing through it. That's basically the only thing I can come up with. Vegas's top line also below average defensively, like you were mentioning. They have been pretty good offensively. Marchessault isn't quite there yet. I think there's something going on with him too. So I agree with you. Like, I think it's the Winnipeg side I like better. And this is why I said earlier I didn't want to play 0.1% Carolina. Because you can get this line at 2% on the road in what I think is a better spot than going into New York and facing Shesterkin. So 1.9% ownership on that line. Now, Winnipeg 1 has also sucked with Alex Iafallo there. So, like, there's just a ton of garbage all around. It's like that meme, like, I live in the garbage, I love the garbage, or something like that. Like, that's basically this game. I also made a note, Mark Scheifele shooting less per minute than Nick Seeler, who is a third-pair defenseman for the Philadelphia Flyers. So he's going to want to start shooting the puck a little bit more. But they are getting a ton of minutes. The power play has not been good. It basically comes down to ownership. They're coming in under 2%. They're going to play 20-plus minutes. At least Kyle Connor's still shooting the puck quite a bit. And they're perfectly correlated on the power play. This is more about Vegas not looking that good than it is Winnipeg not looking that good. Because let's be honest, I don't think it's funny because like Vegas has been off to a really good start record-wise so far this season. I don't think they're nearly as good as their record shows. So I am more interested in the Winnipeg side, but I think this is a game where, again, I don't know if I'm going to be stacking either side.
Yeah, you see the last few cup winners making these deep playoff runs, right? And the next season, early in the season, they've been struggling out of the gate. Like Colorado out of the gate last season was a mess. Vegas has a good record, but again, their numbers scream not.
I mean, and like their last 4 games have all been 1-goal games, and their last 3 have gone to overtime. So, like, it's not like they're blowing teams out or anything for these wins.
Yeah. They'll get there. Just not tonight. Let's get to the last game of the night, and of course it's got to be the Sharks. The Vancouver Canucks with a 3.5 total heading into San Jose. The Sharks have a 2.5 total. I was expecting Vancouver to have a lot more ownership than they do, and I think that they're going to come up through the day. Like, you're going to tell me Elias Pettersson coming off a hat trick going into a matchup with the Sharks is going to come in at 5.5% at 16,100. The same time, JT Miller, Brock Besser, Philip DiGiuseppe, 3% at 15.9 when you get 2 out of 3 guys on the top power play against a joke of a team right now. You know what I mean? So, like, I love Vancouver at this ownership. If it doubles, I still like them. This is a very, very good spot. On the Shark side, like, if you are a masochist, if you're a masochist and you want to feel some pain, go ahead and stack them. But, like, I don't want to stay up that late and watching the Sharks in my lineup.
Yeah, I'm not playing San Jose. We can pass on that. Stacking Vancouver is kind of interesting here because I was looking at the games where, because, you know, San Jose's lost every game. There's been 3 games where they've given up at least 5 goals. No player on the opposing team has a 3-point game in any of those games. You have a couple 2-goal games, like Tommy Novak had a 2-goal game. I think Seth Jarvis had one when Carolina was out there. But it's just teams it's like their lines kind of take their turns beating the hell out of San Jose whenever they happen to hop on the ice. So I mean, I do love Vancouver here. Don't get me wrong. It's the Pettersson, Kuzmenko, Mikheyev line I do like. Since Mikheyev got there, 4.3 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. I wrote up Elias Pettersson in the picks article. Again, free to read over at Stokastic.com. A fantastic website. He's on pace for over 120 for if he was shooting half his shooting percentage. He's shooting 25% right now. If he was shooting half that, he'd still be on pace for over 120 points this season. So, like, he is just on a tear of another sort. And the thing is San Jose, their penalty kill is not very good. They're getting saved by their goaltending, save percentage around 900 by their goalies on the PK. San Jose gives up a lot of power plays as well, 3.8 times shorthanded per game. Vancouver's penalty or power play is where they've been making all their DFS dreams come true, I suppose. That's been the case for a few years now. It's the top line that I like the best, but I think for Vancouver, but I think I'd be more inclined to make it some sort of power play stack, like make sure I get Brock Besser or make sure I get JT Miller or something like that in the lineup, because I think if Vancouver does have like a GPP winning score here tonight, I think it's going to be because they really do a lot of damage on the power play. But I kind of get the ownership the way some of the San Jose games have gone, but this is such a bad team.
Yeah. And you're going to want to get Quinn Hughes in there too. Looks like a different player this year than he did the last few. Let's get to those defensemen. But before we do, there are 165 of you in here. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to smash that like button. It helps us out a lot. Thanks again to our sponsor, Bet365. If you deposit $10 and bet $5, you get $150 in free bonus bets. So make sure to check them out. Link in the description below. Coming up after us, the NBA Deeper Dive at 5 p.m. with Josh Engelman and Adam Schur. NBA Live Before Lock with Eric Lindquist and Mike. I forget your last name, Mike. I apologize. NFL Showdown Live Before Lock at 7:15 with another trash matchup. The NFL is just a terrible product, but our NFL guys are the best. Laffy and Neil will take you up until lock tonight. Let's talk about these defensemen. I do really like Quinn Hughes tonight, and I still think he's underpriced at 5,800. Who are some other top end guys you like?
John Carlson, again, I guess. Washington here. If the Islanders' penalty kill doesn't improve, it seems like not a bad spot for John Carlson. Also, Zach Werenski for Columbus. Tampa Bay's own penalty kill hasn't really been that great. But I'm going to be honest, I don't really like any of the super expensive defensemen here tonight. Like, Scott Mayfield coming back is probably going to hurt Noah Dobson. Dougie Hamilton's on the second power play unit. Like, I guess Evan Bouchard would probably be the guy I would target, but it's more the mid-price guys. Like, I love Jacob Chikrin tonight. He's not really mid-priced. I think he's 5,900. But he played 27 and 28 minutes with those games without Brandstrom and Shabbat and without Zoom in the lineup. So he's going to play a ton of minutes. He's a guy that can put up one of those combo meals for DraftKings block and shot bonuses. So I love Chikrin. Obviously, Quinn Hughes. Again, until they start pricing him in the $6,000 range, I'm going to keep playing Quinn Hughes. Like, just please do me a favor and price him appropriately. It would be nice. If you want to go a little bit lower end in that range, Jake Wallman certainly. He's too expensive on FanDuel. He's like $5,600 on FanDuel, but $4K on DraftKings at home against a Florida team that takes a lot of shots. Feels like one of those 5 block games coming from Jake Wallman here tonight. Mikhail Sergachev, I think, is reasonably priced as well. Vince Dunn for Seattle. I said I didn't really want to stack Seattle, and I don't, but the Nashville penalty kill hasn't been very good, and the Vince Dunn power play unit has been the better power play unit, and he's not priced up at like 6K or whatever. He's at 4,100, so I do like Vince Dunn. Cheap defenseman, I think it's got to be Elias Lindholm from Boston, right? He's going to play. Pardon me?
Hampus, not Elias.
Yeah, Hampus Lindholm, sorry. He's going to play a ton of minutes without McAvoy there, McAvoy or Grzelcyk. Travis Hamonic, if you don't want to pay up for Sanderson or Chikrin, dipping down to Travis Hamonic, I think is fine. Adam Larson, if you don't want to, I think he's like third down to 3,500 for Seattle now, so perfectly acceptable. Under 3K, Keandre Miller, 2,900, obviously sticks out to me for the Rangers. Thomas Harley, his price has come down from yesterday. Don't mind him again. Jacob Bernard Docker, I think, is the min-price play du jour. He had over 21 minutes for Ottawa with all those defensemen injured. I imagine he's going to be around there again, only 2,500 on DraftKings.
Yeah, Keandre Miller has been playing over 20 minutes a night. Yeah, he's a periph guy. What are your thoughts on Goulet? Because he's been playing like 25 minutes, even with Matheson. He's 4,100.
Yeah, I don't mind it. It's just because of the minutes that he's playing. That's the thing. Like if he was playing 21 minutes for 4,100, I wouldn't have a problem. But the thing is like in that 4K range, like you have Hampus Lindholm, 3,700. You have Jake Wallman, 4K. You have like Vince Dunn, 4,100. Like I talked about, like there are just a bunch of guys there in that range that I like. So it's not like Goulet doesn't stand out for that reason.
Yeah, if you can't afford Hampus Lindholm, Shattenkirk is 3,300 as well. So don't mind him. Let's talk about some goalies. Thatcher Demko, most expensive on the board at 8,500 if he starts. There's legitimate upside, like shutout upside for Demko. Like the Sharks have 9 goals in 9 games.
Yeah, they've already been shut out, 2-3 times this year? At least twice, because they were shut out twice in the last 2 games. So
I almost never go above 8K for goalies, just on the way I build my lineups. But if I have 8,500 left, I'll play Demko. Don't mind Logan Thompson up there either. Who's starting for Matt Tompkins is starting for the Lightning. He couldn't beat out Jonas Johansson for the job. That's all I'll say about that. Connor Ingram against Montreal, 7,900. I don't mind. Igor Shesterkin against Carolina at home. Who are you liking for the cheap guys? I mean,
like Igor was the one that stood out, 7,900. Darcy Kemper was the guy I wrote up in the picks article. Like the Islanders haven't been able, they're like Calgary yesterday. Like we talked about in my article, I talked about Jake Ottinger getting a lot of shot volume, but Calgary can't finish. That's basically what happened. The Islanders are kind of like East Coast Calgary right now. So don't mind Darcy Kemper as long as he starts 7,500. Cheap guys on the road, like both Saros and Hellebuck are on the road, 7,200 and 7K respectively, I think.
Yep.
If I'm paying way down, it's going to be one of those two. Like if you're going to give me 2, like those are 2 of the best goalies on the planet, priced really, really cheap. Not necessarily great spots for either, I don't think. But at that price, you don't necessarily need them to hit the shot bonus either. So Saros or Hellebuck, I'm paying down.
Yeah, I don't mind Jake Allen either if he starts. The NHL leader in goals saved above expected so far this season.
Okay.
In GPPs, he had He's 7,300. Arizona's a pretty high volume team, so we'll ride the Lightning with some Jake Allen. I probably won't get there, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention it because I'll get the question in Discord from Haas. You want Jake Allen tonight, bro? And yeah, I don't mind it. For some of that Golden Corral presentation, who are you looking for your hat trick pick?
The guy that's returning from injury here tonight, I'm going to go with Matt Boldy from Minnesota.
My man, I knew that was coming. I'm going McLovin, Warren Fogle.
Ooh, I like that. It'd be nice if he pulled that off. Like he's a player I've always enjoyed watching. He's just never been able to put it together offensively.
Hopefully he was a key cog in the come for the expected goal, stay for the shutout Carolina Hurricanes. So we will be back on Saturday. There's only a 2-game slate tomorrow. Like the NHL's in their classic 15-2, 14-3. It evens out. It gets better. We will be back on Saturday. There is a monster slate on Saturday, 15 games, but I think 13 of them are on the main slate. So we'll be back on Saturday. Make sure to smash the like button on the way out. And good luck, everybody, tonight.
Good luck tonight, everyone.